I held the weight of the world in my hands, but I let it go. Now I understand. I'm awake, I'm aware, I'm alive. I'm living my best recovered life.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. We've got a really interesting topic for you. You know, a lot of the times we feel in addiction recovery that we are going to be able to figure things out, and that if we have the knowledge about what alcoholism is, what addiction is, that somehow that's going to save us, or it's going to make us bulletproof so that we're not going to suffer with this. And it can't be further from the truth. I mean, knowledge is great, but sometimes it does not help when we talk about alcoholism. So I'm so thrilled to bring on our guest today, Coach Joe, who's a valued member of our TikTok community, also has 17 years of continuous sobriety. Welcome to the show, Coach Joe.
Thank you. Thank you.
So great I'm so great that you're here. We've been wanting to do this for a while. And we hear so many people, Joe, talk about, they'll come up in our TikTok lives. They'll write on Recovered Life TV that, wow, they come from addiction. They come, maybe a parent or relatives or friends or everyone around them struggled with this. And they said to themselves one time, they're like, man, I'm not going to do that. Right. And then here they are.
Definitely.
And here they are. And it's so baffling. So you're here to talk about this story. Can you tell us a little bit about Joe, a little bit about yourself, and, how you grew up, and, the early part of this where you realize, like, man, I don't think, like, I don't want to drink. I don't want to, I don't want to be this person.
Right.
And then what happened?
Well, I was the baby of the family. I was the youngest of five. A very Catholic family. My parents were both very involved in the church. I was involved in the church. I went to Catholic school. I was an altar boy. I was in youth group. Even thought about being a priest at one point. However, as I got older, I realized that I liked girls and wanted a family of my own. So that kind of went on the wayside. But my real passion growing up was hockey. Started playing when I was 5 years old. Played it all my life. 1980 came around, the Miracle on Ice, and I wanted to play in the Olympics. A lot of those guys were played at Boston College, Boston University. So, that was my dream, was playing D1 college hockey. And so that was the plan. However, getting into the alcohol part of it, I got my first job when I was in 7th grade, working for a neighbor who he did garden plants and flowers sold them to a lot of the neighbors. And, along with teaching me about gardening, he taught me a lot about the history of where I grew up. But he was in recovery. He was a recovering alcoholic. And after our shifts, we would always sit down and talk, and he would tell me about his struggles. And I remember one time actually finding him in a relapse, and it was scary. It was, 7th grade, what's that, 12, 13 years old, and didn't know what to do. And I remember talking to my mom about it, and she explained a little bit of, how powerful that alcohol is. And
I mean, had you been around people that had drank before, or was this the first
oh
time
yeah,
you saw
my
alcohol?
family was all about, like, we wouldn't go to a restaurant if it didn't serve alcohol. Every family function, there was alcohol.
But maybe you hadn't seen it really like up close like that, where you're seeing somebody in a relapse. I mean, what was your thought about this? Did you just go like, that's not going to ever be me? Like that must
Oh,
be scary.
that I'm like, okay, that I'm not gonna mess with that stuff. Not if it, he did. I don't want to get into all of what happened, but I did not want to be that person. Um, but then, like I said, my family, it was alcohol was everything. Every family function, there was alcohol. Um, the only time there was less alcohol was during Lent, where my dad would give up drinking beer. But Easter Sunday, it was nasty. One of the kids had to drive home from grandma's house, and um, but then my junior year in high school, my mom actually, um, my mom joined AA. Um, just celebrated 41 years, so I'm kind of giving up my
Wow.
age there.
Wow.
Um, 41
So you
years
you saw
continuous.
that go down, Joe. I got to interrupt here because you see this go down. All of a sudden, your mom is now in a, and at that time that happened, that was a big deal. Like you didn't hear about that a lot, especially with women. Like
Right.
women did
And
not
she
join
was,
AA that as much at that time.
really, anonymous was all her, she was all about anonymous, and I probably shouldn't even be talking about it, but um so, but I knew I didn't want to be that. I wasn't going to be a smoker, I wasn't going to be a drinker, and um I just saw too much of it. So
And it's interesting about you because one of the things I learned is that I know that you love hockey. You're a big hockey person, right? And I know you told your story to me, and I was like, you know what? This is it about, okay, you see something you love, you're involved in hockey, and I know in high school you were really involved in it, right? You're really involved in it. You really have goals, and you even see people around you that have alcohol has affected their life. And now, you decide I'm going to pursue hockey, but at the same time you say I'm going to also pursue drinking.
right, well, I get into high school, like I said, I went to Catholic school, so I was I was a popular kid in grade school, middle school. Um, excuse me. But going into ninth grade, it was a shock. I was a little kid. I was 5 foot tall, 85 pounds, um, picked on all the time, and all of a sudden I started realizing that um, I start drinking, and I'm not that little kid anymore. Um, and kids started seeing me differently when I would start drinking. I was able to basically put a mask on and mask who I was, and still really into hockey. Actually, a lot of my drinking started in hockey, with after games, after practices, taking showers, hanging out in the locker room. There was always beer. My
And it's working
coaches,
for you, right?
oh yeah,
At some point at that time of you drink, it's working for you.
yeah, I wasn't that little kid anymore. Kids were actually, because I was actually able to handle my liquor. You know, I remember going to high school dances, being drunk off my, behind, and being able to control myself, and seeing these other kids, and I knew I drank more than they did, and they're getting sick, getting in trouble, and um, but it was just I was cool because I was able to drink.
So
You
when
know,
when did you, I mean, with this hockey obsession you had and you really had real goals like you were talking about, when did the drinking become more of a priority than the hockey?
um, later in high school, um, my grades started slipping, and I figured that hockey was going to be able to carry me through and get me to college. And then when I started talking to coaches who were watching me play and were interested, and then all of a sudden they would see my grades, and I basically graduated high school by the skin of my teeth. I graduated, I think, a GPA of 1.3 or something like that, which I don't know if you can get much lower and still pass. But um, so at that point, I kind of realized that, that dream of playing in the Olympics and playing D1 hockey was out the window. So I decided to couldn't get into college, so I joined the Air Force. Um, serve my country, do the right thing, And 18 years old, away from home for the first time, being in states where the drinking age was actually 18, um, down in Mississippi, and get to a certain point in your training where you're allowed to drink at night. And I started going to the Airmen's Club every night after school. Every weekend was a blur. Every weekend, I don't remember. I remember basic training, not a lot of drink, but realized, hey, I'm allowed to buy NyQuil, and would drink a whole bottle of NyQuil. And it doesn't do the same thing when you drink the whole bottle. It
And
does.
yeah, and probably at that time you didn't think that this was a problem at all, right?
Oh no, it was a way to get to feel the way I wanted to feel without getting in trouble.
They always say, Coach Joe, they say that somebody texted me this the other day. They said, addiction is like, trading everything for one thing. It's like
Definitely.
giving up everything for this one thing, but we don't see it like that. Did you see it like that at the time?
I don't think I kind of, I don't think I thought, realized or acknowledged that I was giving anything up. I think the whole, like the hockey thing was just, okay, it wasn't in my cards. It wasn't meant to be. So let's do this Air Force thing. And basic training, I was doing well. Finally got to my regular duty assignment out in Las Vegas, Nevada. Scary place for a young alcoholic to be.
I bet.
My roommate was 23, so he was able to. We always had alcohol in the room. And I started getting in trouble, being hungover and being late for work. And I was actually put into correctional custody for 30 days, basically Air Force jail. And along with that, I was mandated to go to a meeting. It wasn't necessarily AA, but it was an Air Force run substance abuse classes. And I remember the moderator or facilitator, or whatever you want to call him, was telling me that I was an alcoholic. And I'm like, oh, well, you can't tell me I'm an alcoholic. Only I can tell me I'm an alcoholic. And
now,
like,
did
well, how do
any
you?
of this click? Because when they say that,
No.
and your mom obviously is in
Not at
recovery,
all.
you see this guy, you have experiences throughout your whole family and your early work, and you don't link it, right? And isn't this the strange thing about alcoholism, that we don't link it?
No, because I was telling him, I'm like, you can't tell me I'm an alcoholic. Only I can tell me, because my mom told me that nobody can tell you you're an alcoholic. Only that person, only yourself can tell you you're an alcoholic. So then this guy's like, well, if you're the child of an alcoholic, the odds of you becoming an alcoholic, there's 1 in 5 chance of you becoming an alcoholic. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I started thinking about it a little bit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, there's 5 kids in my family, so maybe one of us is an alcoholic. And so as these poor decisions started coming up, and I would choose partying and having fun over actually doing my job. And anybody that knows anything about the military, I think the Air Force is probably the way to go if you want to have fun. My brother-in-law, who was in the Army, said, oh, it looked like you guys were going to a softball game all the time, because, we wear squadron ball caps. And Yeah, I had a 9 to 5 job. I was a radar operator, and if we weren't doing we would do the red flag missions where we would help train the pilots. And if it wasn't a mission, we would only work half days. So we're working one week, we're working 9 to 12. The next week, we're working 12 to 5. And so every other weekend, you basically had a 3-day weekend because you'd be done Friday at noon and you wouldn't have to be at work until Monday at 5 or Monday at noon. So, Las Vegas to Tijuana wasn't very far. Las Vegas to LA wasn't very far. Las Vegas to San Francisco. My roommate was a big Grateful Dead fan, so we would go out. And I know you have a good story about Haight-Ashbury.
Yes,
but,
exactly.
Spent some time up there. I remember going to a Grateful Dead show, and I could tell you stories about Grateful Dead show, but and these parties and this live life like we joked, the group of us, we called ourselves the beer hunters, and our motto was live life like you're on vacation. But that living life on vacation is what ended up getting me out of the service.
Joe, when we come back, we're going to talk about what happened when this all of a sudden stopped working for you. How you kind of linked it all together after this quick break, how you linked it all together, and how you walked into the solution, because you have 17 years, and that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a long time. And I think many people will relate to your story. Guys, when we come back, Joe's going to get to the rest of the story about what happened and then what he actually did, steps he took to get sober. We'll be back right after this quick break.
Recovery isn't just a journey, it's a lifestyle. And now, you can wear your recovery with pride. The Recovered Life Shop is live, packed with merch designed just for people in recovery. Whether it's a hoodie to keep you warm, a mug to start your day right, or a statement tee that lets the world know you're living your best recovered life. Need a little humor in your recovery? Grab the Resentment Some Assembly Required t-shirt. It's a classic. Ready to take massive action? Start your day with the Massive Action coffee mug. Or keep it simple and spiritual with the Chopwood Fetch Water Trucker hat. Every piece is designed to inspire, start conversations, and keep you connected to your recovery journey. And the best part? Every purchase supports great content like this and spreads the recovery message. So go to recoveredlife.tv and click on the shop tab now.
Step out of the shadows into the light. Find your tomorrow, start the fight. Recovered Life TV, see the change. Living your best life, it's within reach. Visit recoveredlife.tv today.
You're listening to The Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives.
And we're back with my guest, Coach Joe, with the topic of knowledge avails us nothing. Before the break, Coach, you were talking about how you had family members that were already sober at this time. You've seen alcoholism, you've seen it firsthand, and you thought, no, that's not going to be me. But you find yourself in a situation, in the military, drinking too much, doing the thing. What happened? How did it hit the wall where you started to realize, Joe, that maybe you've seen this before?
Well, when I got out, initially I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I didn't link the drinking to my issues. I just thought I was young, immature, homesick. So when I came home, I'm like, okay, let's go back to school, or let's try to go to college. And so I enrolled in a local community college and actually ended up flunking out. something that is extremely hard to do is flunk out of community college. But again, that was, instead of doing homework, I was hanging out, partying. But I would get a job, bounce around from job to job, relationship to relationship. I eventually got a job working at a local ice skating rink. And with that job, I started teaching kids how to skate, how to play hockey. And that passion of mine of playing hockey and getting back into hockey was coming back. You know, it was, okay, maybe I'm not going to play hockey. Maybe I'm going to coach hockey. So got into that, started coaching hockey. This is like late 80s, early 90s. Started coaching high school hockey. Ended up meeting my future ex-wife, and with her, it was, okay, you need a real job. We want to get a house, start a family. This job's not a real job. It's just a plaything. So I got a job working construction, and that was a, decent job. I was getting decent pay, but ended up getting laid off. And after that layoff, actually in that time, we did get married, and had that typical alcoholic marriage where you'd fight like crazy, and then make up, and then fight, and then make up. And I started to realize that all these fights were happening after we were drinking. So I would try to, I remember making the comment that, hey, maybe I am an alcoholic. Maybe I am the 1 in 5 that got the family disease. But my wife at the time was like, oh, well, maybe it's worse when you're drinking whiskey. Maybe just stick to beer and wine. And so did that for a while, and it was working, and but we were still fighting. And we had a kid, bought a house, things looked good. I started tending bar, started managing bars, and what a great job for an alcoholic to have. Didn't have to pay for it as much. One of my amendments. But the one bar I worked at, the owner actually, he didn't tell us we weren't allowed to drink. He would just put time limits on us that we weren't allowed to drink until a certain time.
When did this start to hit the wall for you, where you realized and it all clicked? Can you take me to that point? Because I think for a lot of people who have it, there's such denial, especially if we come from, there's almost more denial if we come from a family that has it, because we don't want to be that. Can you take me to the day where it just really clicked for you?
Well, I think it really started getting when my wife asked me to move out. It was shortly after our 10th anniversary. Shared, had a nice dinner, nice expensive bottle of wine. And so I moved out, got my own apartment, and basically started living a life that I look back at today, and I'm not too proud of who I was. Again, bouncing from relationship to relationship, drinking every night, not remembering a lot of things. And it was ugly. It was really ugly. I remember one time my daughter finding me passed out and couldn't wake me up. And I kept saying, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. little time would go on and I'd be like, okay, yeah, let me manage it. I won't drink. I won't start drinking till certain time. I won't drink when my daughter's at the house. I won't drink, started putting rules that would work for a week. But towards the end, those rules weren't working anymore. It was May 8th or 9th. I don't remember the exact date. I got a new job. I was working in fast food managing. I was actually able to get a promotion and have a decent job running a local national chain, running one of their stores, and was doing great. The numbers were great. They were actually auditing me because my numbers were too good, but I was still having that general manager position actually helped me out as an alcoholic because I was able to basically make my own hours. If I was hungover and came in late, well, I'll just stay late, and whatever. But that early May of 2007, I was out in New Jersey training for a new job with a full service restaurant, and I got a text that my best friend had passed away suddenly. And that night I got a handle and drank the whole thing, and I still felt that pain. And at that point I realized that I'm now a pickle. I cannot, something has to change. Found out that the manager at that store that I was training was in the rooms, and I started talking to him, and he asked me one question. He goes, "Do you wake up in the morning and say you're not going to drink?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, non-alcoholics don't wake up in the morning and say they're not going to drink. They just don't drink." I got to step back a little bit. My sister, about 10 years before this happened, my sister actually joined AA. And I figured for a while there, well, that's the 1 in 5, that I was safe.
Thank God she's the one who got it, and you're
She's
safe.
the one.
You could
She's
just
the
be
one.
a
I'm
problem
safe.
drinker. You could just be a problem drinker.
So that was around the time when my wife and I was talking about it, and she was just saying to switch back to just beer and wine.
So
And,
this pursuit, obviously you got sober, you've been sober for, well over a decade. And, pleased to announce you found your passion again.
yes.
And what I love about your story is when I first talked with you, I was like, wow, you told me about this. But then I was like, you know what? You were able to rebuild, you were able to rekindle your passion again and build a life in sobriety. And, when it all came together for you and as you started to build this life, did you start to look back and say, oh my God, I knew this was right in front of me the whole time?
Oh yeah. That from that moment when my friend passed away, to when I got sober was actually 8 months. And I look back at it now, that was the worst 8 months of my life. I got fired from that job that I was working at. I got 2 DUIs. This is all after I admitted that I was an alcoholic. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the day I got my license back from my first DUI. I was out celebrating, and I wrecked my car, and I got a DUI, my second DUI, and hopefully my final DUI. And that was the last day I drank. So And I think at that moment, the next morning, I called my mom and I told her what happened. And she actually came and took me to the rehab. And when I signed up, I think that is the proudest I've ever seen my mother be proud of me. From when I got married, when I had a child, when I had great hockey games, when I joined the service, I've never seen my mother as proud as I did when I said I need to go to rehab.
Coach Joe, it's funny because, we talk a lot about surrendering on Recovered Life, in the show and in the live streams. And when we finally do it, when we've grown up with alcoholism around us, in a way, it's kind of a relief because you realize, oh, I'm not crazy. Like this,
Right.
this is what's going on, right? In recovery here, in conclusion here, as we draw this to an end, I'd love for you to talk about now that you've had this experience, right? Where you've seen it, you became it, you've now rebuilt your life in recovery. Um, how do you look at this differently when you work with others or you talk with others who have a problem that they say, man, alcoholism's all in my family, but I don't think it's me. I mean, you hear this in the live stream every day. It
Right.
can't be me.
I
What's
want to
your
just
what's your
reach in
message
and
to
grab
them?
them.
What's your message to
And
them, Coach?
it's possible. It's not only is it possible, it is so rewarding. Um, in my recovery, I met my current wife, who has had at the time had two young children, and with them they got into hockey, and I started coaching. Um, Within that, I got a job. I work at a local ice skating rink now. I run all the adult leagues for many years. I was the youth hockey coordinator. I worked with all the little kids. I was teaching kids how to skate again. I was teaching kids how to play again. Um, and I'm still coaching today. I'm not coaching the little kids anymore. Now I'm an assistant coach with a local college team, which is just extraordinarily rewarding. And I wouldn't have any of it if it wasn't for me saying, I can't handle this. I need help. Um, Without being able to admit uh, that I couldn't do it. When I hit that rock and I knew I felt my life was over, and I remember going through the first time I went through the steps and, admit you're an alcoholic. Yeah, I'm powerless. Turn my life, and I'm like, how can I turn my life over and trust a higher power who I thought deserted me? All those years of growing up in the Catholic Church, um, the God I remember learning about, not the God I necessarily was taught about, but the God I remember learning about was vengeful. Um, Talking about going to hell, and I'm like, from everything I did, I was definitely going to hell. And I remember telling my sponsor how I can't, how can I believe in God if I believe God left me? And he's like, well, you don't need, your higher power doesn't need to be God. He goes, and jokingly, he said, your higher power can be that rock. Hmm. So for the longest time, that rock was my higher power. But I found out that I wasn't going to go to hell. I was in hell before. My life, the people, I hear it all the time where people are afraid of AA because of it being religious. And I've heard it said, and I love it, and I'll say it again, that religion is for people that are afraid to go to hell. spirituality for people that have been to hell and don't want to go back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And AA is definitely a spiritual, more spirit. It's not religious, it's spiritual. It saved my life, and just going through and working those steps now. And, I use that 10th step, every day. If I notice I did something wrong, I go and I try to fix it right away. I don't let it fester. Now there are times where I'm not as strong. I remember, not feeling too good when my mother-in-law passed away. She passed away from cancer, and I remember being upset about that. But I remember also thinking a drink isn't gonna bring her back. It's not gonna make anything better. And I need to honor her by staying sober and taking care of her daughter and her grandkids.
Keeping it, keeping the sobriety going is really
Right.
the solution. Coach Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Guys, we are going to, if you're a Recovered Life Plus subscriber, we're going to do another couple minutes with Coach Joe that we will release here and have access to if you are a subscriber on TikTok or here on Recovered Life. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Hold on tight, Joe. We're gonna come right back to you later. But thank you guys for tuning into this episode. And I always say, Joe, final last word here. If alcoholism's in your family and you've kind of seen this rodeo before, it's something to pay attention to. Something to
Right.
pay attention to. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Hey, if you like this episode, think about supporting us by becoming a Recovered Life Plus member. At Recovered Life TV, we're not just delivering premium recovery resources, we're empowering you with the knowledge and tools that make a real difference in the quality of your recovery. By subscribing, you gain access to ad-free content, expert insights, exclusive video and audio segments, special projects, plus so much more, all while supporting our mission to spread the recovery message far and wide. Whether you're seeking to deepen your understanding or stay updated on the latest addiction and mental health recovery trends, Recovered Life Plus is for you. Subscribe now and start living your best recovered life. Just go to recoveredlife.tv and become a Plus member today.